Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Elden Dogs, a very special Elden Dogs. This is Elden Dogs number 25.
Hey.
25.
Feels like there have been a lot more.
And you've only been here for some.
Yeah.
If you don't recognize that voice, it's because he hasn't been here in a while. We had to pull out the biggest of guns for this episode. Because only one of us knows a shitload about Dark Souls.
That's me.
I am Sir Gideon Ofnir. We have survived the whole war, and now we're in the end game. We're talking about our creators today. Not the Golden Order, not the God of Rot, none of the other weirdos. We're talking about the great Miyazaki and Martin. Who else is here?
Alexander Iron Fist here, still all band-aided and taped up from my personal shattering. But I'm doing good. I have some people leaking out of me at the moment, but I'll be just fine.
I will say, this is the least hungover you've looked in a while.
I need to take better care of myself. So I didn't drink that much last night.
Okay.
The problem is you're in Wisconsin, so you're eating alcoholics as Alexander. Now you're just full of alcoholics inside.
So it didn't matter.
I mean, the human body is made of like 90% water, 10% other stuff, and 100% high life.
Yeah, it adds up.
Don't do the math. I did the math for you.
And I'm like the cool secret character you guys totally missed. I'm Dylan.
You're cut content.
I'm cut content, baby. I'm a cool boss, but guess what? It was just too weird for people.
People couldn't handle it.
No, people just couldn't handle it. I'm actually excited to talk about a few creators here. There's nothing I like better than talking about the art itself. So,
as a young man, I remember in English class, you'd have the About the Author page, and they'd make us read it. I'm like, this is the most stupid thing ever. I don't need to know about these guys. I hate this. And then, growing up, you realize it's actually super informative to know the time period, who they were, and why they wrote the things that they did.
right.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun today. We do this series on the main Dogcast, Raw Dogs specifically, where we do great gamers in history. Nolan Bushnell was a banger of an episode.
That one was fun.
The Tetris episode was great.
I mostly just talked about Chuck E. Cheese, but,
we just needed an excuse to talk about Chuck E. Cheese, which is
I really did. It's kind of like when we did the McDonald's episode.
And yeah, and this is a little bit of an excuse for me to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire today as well. We're talking about our Lord and creators, our saviors, Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin. Mm-hmm. We're going to start with the big cheese, Hidetaka Miyazaki. He was born 1974 in Shizuoka, Japan.
He's relatively young.
Yeah, it's...
He's almost 50, that means.
He never likes to talk about his personal life, so I had to...
follow him to his house.
Yeah, I actually hired a private eye. His name was Dylan.
Yeah. I went all... Hey, you footed the bill, man. I went all the way to Japan.
You used to be a private eye briefly.
I think
I've done like 4 cases, I guess is what you could call them.
Your business card said, "I'm a real dick."
I didn't have a business card because that would leave traces of evidence.
the amount of Souls games that you've played, even if Brad paid you, I think for you, Dylan, that would still be stalking.
Oh yeah, it's I'm famous for saying Dark Souls is still probably my favorite game of all time. It was a time in my life I fell in love with it. It felt like something brand new. I had even played Demon Souls, and I think Demon Souls is just okay. Dark Souls kicked that up to the next level, just automatically. It was love at first sight.
Yep,
love at first controller.
You're love at first soul.
You're the soul of the podcast.
Yeah, it's true. I'm kind of like the Holy Trinity. Sometimes I'm like
the
Holy
thing.
I'm the Holy Ghost of the Trinity. I'm kind of there, watching down on you.
But
I'm like the spirit around you. I'm the Force.
We are one, but three. It's hard to understand.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm also half woman. That's my America side.
And I sometimes moonlight as a giant turtle who likes to wear a boat bat.
Whoa, that's huge.
You just do that anyway.
But well, first we opened a beer. We're having a special beer for Elden Dogs 25. We got a Bourbon County from Goose Island. Stout aged in bourbon barrels with coffee added.
Wow.
Where'd
you get that from?
probably seagulls. People go crazy when Bourbon County's out. At least it used to be a bigger deal. And they snatch them all up, and then they just don't realize you just go to every liquor store and there's still bottles sitting on the shelves for a long time.
Yeah.
So this one, it's only from 2022, but it is one with coffee, and the coffee flavor does dip after a long enough time. So I do like to drink these sooner. But this is a nice little breakfast for us here.
Lovely.
I've been awake now for just today about 47 minutes, and I'm already drinking a stout, and that's just
A bourbon stout.
yeah. But the
There's nothing
Packers
wrong
play
with
at noon, so it's gonna. I mean,
It's going to be big.
it's gonna be a good day.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna watch it.
But like I was saying, it's very difficult to get information about Miyazaki's personal life because he doesn't want to talk about it. He says the games are what they are, and I don't want to talk about who I am. But
That's true. That's true artistry.
So-
That's brilliant.
I think it's great too. I mean, the art needs to speak for itself, but
Yeah.
we're not doing that today. I read a lot of interviews and I found out some stuff.
You know, it's true what they say though. Like nobody's a saint, even people you feel like you admire. And by removing themselves from the art, they actually do the art more of a service.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a preconceived notions, if you found out somebody was, heavily involved in protesting or a certain political ideology, it'll shade your feelings about something before you even see it.
Well, there's something to be said about public figures doing that.
The more you know about Zack Snyder, the less you want to watch his movies.
It's definitely true.
Yeah, and with like more and more stuff coming out about that 70s show, I find it hard to rewatch one of my favorite shows.
Yeah. But he grew up tremendously poor, Miyazaki. That's his words. Keen reader, borrowed from the library. He couldn't read all the words because a lot of them were in English. He wasn't able to read. So he would create the rest of the stories in his head. He would see the images and just imagine stuff, which he has said is a very precursor to his approach to storytelling in his video games. Loves tabletop games, game books. He likes to refer to himself as an absolutely indoor person.
I dig that.
A man of my heart.
Yeah, I'm quite the indoor person.
Parents restricted him from video games until he was old enough to attend university where...
I mean, fuck. So he didn't start playing games till it was like the late 80s then, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
He attended Keio University and graduated with a degree in social science, later getting a job as an account manager for the U.S.-based Oracle Corporation. He did this to pay for his sister's college tuition fees.
What a gem.
Cool dude.
Yeah.
Upon a friend's recommendation, Miyazaki played the 2001 video game Ico,
Oh, wow.
and this caused him to change his career and become a video game designer.
Have you guys played Eco?
No, I wanted to ask you about it.
Okay, so Eco is one of those like watershed games. I played a little bit of it at the time, but I remember playing it in depth around like 2011. They released the Shadow of the Colossus Eco bundle for the PlayStation 3 with HD graphics. And that is one of those games that I do not think ages particularly well because it was a very firm concept of almost like a survival horror, and the whole thing is an escort mission. You're this little horned boy who is kind of cursed and is trying to the cover's really bad.
It's been ranked as one of like the worst video game covers of all time.
Look up the Japanese one.
It's way better.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And
Instead of that fucking horrible North American
it's like the other one is just like concept art. You're this little horned boy and you're leading this that's a really good
It looks
cover.
like Salvador Dali.
Yeah, mixed with that Polish guy that painted all the hellscapes and was stabbed a whole bunch of times. I can never pronounce his name.
It's oh my god.
Starts with his last name starts with a Z, I think.
But it's fine.
Eco, horned boy,
Eco,
escort mission.
It's basically one long escort mission where you're leading this girl and nobody really speaks a language that you've ever heard. It's all kind of made up. It's all like, it's very artsy. It's one of those games that was so artsy, in fact, that a lot of people just didn't understand it. Because a lot of people at the time, and obviously 2001, people weren't thinking of video games as art. That's just not what was going on.
The medium was in a transition phase, and part of it was getting out of gameplay and focusing so much on cinematic look and graphics and realism. And I've never played Eco. I think it's one of those games that's kind of its time. If you missed it, it's hard to revisit. Maybe.
Well, their follow-up, Shadow of the Colossus, is still utterly playable.
Yeah,
beautiful. One of my favorite. It's in my top 10, definitely. I would say that Eco did give me pause even when I was 11 years old. Like, I played it on someone else's PlayStation 2 because I'm like, what the fuck is up with this game? And he's like, you probably won't like it. I don't really like it. And I'm like, I want to try it.
Yeah.
And so I did. And
I
was
used to wear horns around everywhere.
Well, I have to shave them down. I'm like Hellboy.
You're like Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a.
We'll talk about Hellboy later, actually.
I can see how an adult man might actually like witness something like this for the first time and go, oh, fuck.
Well, he's 29 years old and he plays Eco. He's like, I'm changing careers right now.
Yeah.
And so he's 29 years old, and Miyazaki found out that few video game companies would hire somebody with zero experience making video games. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
But From Software was one of the few that did. So he changed his career. And spoiler warning, within 10 years, he's company president. Almost completely unprecedented in Japan.
He speed ran the corporate ladder.
He just fucking crushed it, dude.
That's impressive. 10 years.
10 years he became company president.
That's fucking wild.
That's pretty interesting because all of his gameplay philosophy is like, yes, everything is hard, everything is difficult, but if you try, you can do it.
And he's fucking living proof, man.
Yeah,
he makes difficult things like climbing a corporate ladder seem easy. He got good.
Well, they asked me to be the boss at my job, and I said no. Let the younger generation.
Well, that just means that I have
Very good of
exactly
you.
9 years to become the president of A24.
Once you start working there, if
Yeah,
you ever
well,
start
I've
working
already
there.
lost a year too because I'm 30 and he was 29.
yeah.
So, I mean, if you can dream it, you can do it.
There's no time frame on when success happens. Many people get it later in life. George R. Martin, but we'll get to him. So 2004, he started as a coder. His first game he worked on was Armored Core: Last Raven. 2005, he was a planner. 11th entry in the Armored Core series. Have you played a lot of the older ones? No,
not even close. No, my introduction to the Armored Core series was the Xbox 360 era. So
he then worked on Armored Core 4 in 2006 is when that game came out. He started as main planner, got promoted to director. So second game he worked on, he's getting promoted to director pretty quick.
that game rules,
Yeah.
by the way.
It was a little controversial at the time, right? Like, because it kind of changed a lot of things.
It made it much more difficult.
Who saw that coming?
There's a lot more sorties, or what they're called, like battles, and they're all straightforward. Not a lot of character portraits or models. Everything's done through like dialogue. Very straightforward. Yeah.
He said he was in charge of the story, setting, design, and game systems. Armored Core 4 Answer, 2008 director for that. And those were the 3 games he worked on before Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls, he was director. At the time, Sony wanted From Software to make a game to compete with Oblivion.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, Oblivion
Yeah.
was the big hot shit at the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's so strange though. Oblivion had come out in 2004.
I don't know the time frame. Probably around there.
It was 2004 because 2011 then was Skyrim.
Yeah.
Timeline kind of works out. Yeah.
While working on the Armored Core series, he heard that a game called Demon's Souls wasn't doing well. Problems with the team, and then they had been unable to create a compelling prototype. He heard it was a fantasy action RPG, and he said he wanted it, and he wanted to take control. Since his reasoning was, the game was already a failure, I can't fail. Like, I mean, it's already fucked, so at worst, it just stays fucked.
That's a good way. Honestly, that's how I pretty much live every day. Yeah. Like,
Me
I'm
too.
already fucked, so I mean, it can only go up from here.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
Last night, I won a Stein holding competition. I'm like, I expected nothing from my life, and look at me now.
Be the change you want to see in the world, Brad. Hold more steins.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, it's all those jacking off muscles.
It was an entire week of shoveling is what it was.
Or maybe he got zapped being an electrician. He's got powers and we don't know about him yet.
I'm like Jamie Foxx.
You're not blue enough.
I just jumped in a vat of eels and my gap between my teeth closed.
Why is it always a vat? It's a vat of something always.
Well, it's just like, why do RPGs always have sluice gates? You're not going to run into sluice gates in the real world on a day-to-day basis anyways. But Miyazaki comes in, immediately changes everything. Demon's Souls originally was going to be first person. And
That would have been a bad choice.
Yep, he said that's not going to work for the game he wants to make. One of the big design things that you'll find with Miyazaki games is difficulty. Making the game difficult was never the goal. What we primarily aim for is to provide a sense of accomplishment. Which one leads
At the end of the
other.
day, you get there.
You can bash your head against. I mean, Souls games are what people don't understand when they talk about difficulty is the easy mode is literally getting more runes or whatever, more souls. That's how you make the game easier for yourself. You might have to farm a little, you might have to put in the work, but ultimately it's kind of simple. Like you can really just figure out a way to do it. It's not difficult. It can be annoying, but not difficult.
The trick would be to just plug in a Game Shark or whatever and just get infinite health. If you couldn't die from 5 hits from most enemies, that would do it.
Yeah.
But he has said, if you are knocked down, I want you to fall because of the player. Otherwise, the player will not think about growing or strategizing. It's unreasonable to die because of a game or system. It's always not good to win probabilistically. Probabilistically. That's a tough one. I try not to be something like you can win if you do it over and over. If you don't point out as a game that it's your fault, it's challenging to operate, it's unreasonable, or it's 1/100th of a critical hit, it is a little different. I care about that.
I mean, that's not a philosophy it's not a mainstream philosophy by any means. I mean, you can play any fucking game on the market that's mass marketed to people.
I mean, fuck. The majority of RPG games that come out now, if you pre-order it or you pay a little extra, they give you a shit ton of starting gear that makes you way OP for the first 6-7 hours of the game.
If you buy 10 Mountain Dews, you're going to get the armor.
And kidney stones.
Well, interesting enough, in
It's true.
In Starfield, they do, because I got like that early pack to play it early, and that shit just becomes useless pretty damn quick. It helps you out at the beginning, but then it's just like, nah.
I never use it because it's not earned. I earned it with my wallet, but I didn't earn it in game.
I bought 10 candy bars to get special items in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I entered the receipt online and was sent a code. That is who I am.
What did you
bars?
fucking get?
I don't remember. I think it was like a summon or like special armor or bangles or something. But I was going to eat candy bars probably at some point anyway, so I just had them in a drawer for a while.
If it was 10 Snickers, you win-win then.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Plus you get diabetes.
Yeah. If it's an Almond Joy, no, what's that coconut one? Then you lost.
Oh boy, what are those called?
Bad is what they're called.
Well, yeah, that fake coconut really sucks ass.
Another design aspect that he showed early on, open-ended storytelling. Most of these are from interviews. Check out Don RV. He has a lot of great essays on a website, and he just recently started doing YouTube videos, and he's very new, but big following already. Like the making of Dark Souls is already up to like 40,000 views, and he's a young YouTuber, but
Jeez Louise.
I want to leave the discovery and interpretation of the world's lore and stories to the players. This is the main reason why I focus on environment and subtle storytelling. Instead of the game automatically telling the story, the players will get more value from it if they discover hints of the plot from items and people they encounter in the world.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the Soul style of games.
It's refreshing because when you first start one of these games, sometimes you get a preamble and it kind of gives you like the core conceit of what the mythology is.
Yeah.
Or they give you some vague hints of what your character is supposed to be doing, and then they kind of just let you go right. They tell you, fuck off, do what you need to do.
But what they do is instead of giving you a big, like, here is the story and the mission, they give you like 10 questions and the mission. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you start Elden Ring, they're like, the loathsome dung eater. I'm like, what the fuck is
Who's
this
that
guy? Horalu? Like, what are we talking about here?
I was like several hours into Elden Ring, and my brother walked in and was like, "What are you playing? Elden Ring? What is it about?" Don't know.
Still don't know.
Swords.
I just kill shit.
You start Bloodborne, you know almost nothing. They say almost nothing. You're just like getting a blood transfusion, and then there's these little dudes grabbing you, and you just wake up, and there's a werewolf. And you're like, what the fuck is happening?
It didn't have a preamble of any sort.
I don't believe it even has a narration. It just kind of shows the streets of Yharnam, and then you're getting like a blood transfusion from some guy. You can find a note later on that says you came looking for your blood to be purified. I forget what it was. But no, there's not like... You learn very quickly that a plague is spread through Yharnam. Be careful out there. You don't know almost any, like, where that story goes.
I kind of remember that being jarring when I first played it.
It was clever, though, the way it just seemed like we're making a horror game about werewolves and, beasts, and then it just opens up to, no, this is cosmic horror of the biggest kind. Another design element found in Demon's Souls, leaving messages for each other in the game world. You can warn of nearby hazards or trick players to their deaths or fingers in buttholes. I love that. Social mechanics in a single-player game that has since become very popularized.
Yeah, because you have to use templates. That's the most interesting part about it. You can't just... It really gets rid of a lot of problems that a lot of games like this could have had if they just let the player type in whatever they wanted to.
Yeah.
Because then all you would see was the N-word everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah.
With Mario Maker, when you play with those on, your screen just gets covered with like drawings and this horrible shit.
Yeah.
I like Mario Wonder's approach, which seems like we haven't played it yet. This might be out afterwards, but the way that you can just see like the ghosts of players and what they did.
Wait, when does it come out again?
Soon. We're recording this the second week of football. September 16th, if anyone's listening. But no, Wonder has that same mechanic where you can see the ghosts of other players or leave items for people, which anytime that's become a thing now because single player games in an online universe, this was one of the progenitors of that idea.
Yeah. That's maybe the most interesting part about it is that there's also lore reasons as to why you're finding all these messages. It's people from other realms, or
fits in universe.
In Dark Souls, they say that one character states that time is kind of folding in on itself, and there are probably multiple yous out there trying to achieve the same thing. It's really kind of dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very mythological. It's like a real Ouroboros of storytelling, which I always appreciate.
And goddamn, every single game they will find a different conceit on why it's happening in these universes.
Yeah.
Yep. There's always a bonfire. There's always a lighthouse. There's always a reason for you to come back to life after you die 1,000 times. Miyazaki had the idea for this after his car became trapped in snow on a hill. A group of strangers pushed the vehicle to the top, and then they all disappeared soundlessly into the night. He never got to talk to them. It was probably like a quick thank you, and he's like, that left a big impression on him. He's like, who are those people? Where'd they go? It's Midwest is what it is.
Yeah.
They went to the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of shit you do actually get in the Midwest.
He had meetings with Sony to like show where the game was. He made sure to purposely not talk about the difficulty and kind of bury it in the presentation behind everything else. He feared they would remove it. Disastrous reception at the Tokyo Game Show a few months before release. Many players didn't make it past the character creation screen. Also at the Tokyo Game Show were games such as Halo 3, Prince of Persia, and Bayonetta. Some big, like, prestige titles that would leave a big mark. And Demon's Souls just like, no, fuck you. This game is not the prettiest. It's just the most challenging.
Well, Bayonetta wasn't the hit it was going to be at the time. Even early on, people did think it looked dumb because they didn't understand like the thesis of it, how it's supposed to be like just kind of a really weird, dumb action movie with a sexy witch. It's really all it is.
Sign me up.
And she has guns everywhere.
Sign me up.
Guns
again.
everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. And she can become a train.
See, I didn't know I needed that in my life until like, what was it, earlier this year?
But you wouldn't even believe what happened to me and Dylan yesterday. We were at Bayview Bash, and a furry gave us beans.
I still have it.
And-
Okay, so I did.
Wait, no, see, this is one of those things. If we explain it more, the mystery goes away, like in Dark Souls. I'd rather you not know who this furry was and why they gave us beans or what these beans do.
But he's digging through his pockets. He might have beans. Yesterday was peculiar. Something weird was going on. I was really hungover at a gas station getting some Pedialyte, and I looked up, and the fucking mystery machine drove by.
So this
With
bean,
Scooby-Doo in it.
This bean is a key item. It says, given to Dylan by a mysterious furry.
Yeah.
Its meaning is unknown and its purpose is clouded in mystery.
It was a very
It's
colorful.
smiling at me, though.
The bean is smiling at you is the last thing that it says. And then someone wrote 30 paragraphs about what this could mean. When really, we don't know who that furry was. We don't know why who they were. They showed up on a bike, we took a picture, and they gave us beans.
It looks like possibly not a pinto.
We think it might be a beanstalk to go to heaven. To go to Richard Ayoade's Fable.
To the heavy side layer, if I can do cats.
Always down to do some cats.
Yeah.
Dylan, you are a curious cat.
I'm kind of more of a Mephistophilio.
Mephisto? No,
Mephistopheles.
Mephistopheles.
Yeah.
Oh.
Magical Mr. Mephistopheles.
That sounds like a
The
demon.
tuxedo cat.
The game performed horribly on release. It sold 20,000 copies in the first week.
It got good reviews, though.
Due to the poor release, Sony decided against localizing the game for Western markets. They would regret this. The game was licensed in North America by Altus USA, and Bandai Namco would publish for the PAL regions.
Atlas.
Yeah. Not the Altus Plateau.
Yes.
Word spread, however, of the complex armor and weapon systems, the severe punishment, not simply a power fantasy, but a test of skill. Within months, sales passed 100,000, and the game found a publisher in the West. It became a big fucking deal.
That's the price to pay, unfortunately, for introducing new, interesting concepts.
Yeah, challenging people is tough. They're not going to get it
Yeah.
right away necessarily.
I mean, do you remember stories of when like Super Mario 64 came out? Completely redefined like the idea of what a platformer was, and they would have guides and little videotapes in Japan to give to like older people who could not literally process having a 3D platformer or how that might actually work. So they're like, this controls the camera. That's the whole reason Lakitu is a camera in it. Did you know that?
No.
yeah.
It's literally so that people could visualize themselves as the cameraman.
It helped
So
them
that-
comprehend how the
how the camera itself works.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty dope when you think about it.
Speaking on the design process, this is him describing what his design process was in his early career. Two main categories. One is providing designers with simple keywords that they would brainstorm during the early stages and allow them to design freely. Test the images and provide feedback. He says, if I didn't receive the results I expected, I began giving more specific descriptions and might even start drawing things on a whiteboard. But even then, I would never go as far as to say it has to be this color or this shape. I do not intend for the designers to become my tools. Things don't always go as I want, but I believe that's probably due to me not getting the most out of the artists. This is one of the things I want to get better at in the future.
Can he be my fucking boss?
Can he be all of like the world's boss? Can he just like run countries too?
That is a level of like zen that not a lot of people can achieve.
I think of the Star Wars prequels and all of the designers for the artwork and the characters. And George Lucas comes in and they all get fucking terrified and quiet. And he brings in a marker and just puts big X's on like half of the shit. And people are like, oh God, no. And like someone who made Dexter Jester, they're like, yes.
Yeah, true. Yeah. He loved Dexter Jester. He's like, it's cool. It's like a 50s diner, but in outer space.
And yeah, you just can't predict. And he comes in, making big decisions. But I like that Miyazaki lets the people just kind of design stuff and just maybe like move it over that way.
Well, when you have a happy workforce, they do better work. And in a creative field, when they're happy, they're content, and they think that their creativity is going to be seen and heard and recognized, then you're only setting yourself up for success.
Do you think
have
it was
creative
pizza
people
parties
doing their job.
Do you think it was pizza parties every day?
At least bi-weekly.
Okay.
At least. And it was probably like it was probably like
And they weren't like the thin slices you get when you're in school.
no, there was probably some nice like
I'm
spot.
I'm an extremely underpaid teacher. I got one large pizza for 20 people. We only get one piece. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
You guys got to share the
Yeah,
crust.
I know. That's what I was going to say too. You judge it so hard as a kid, but then it's just like, well, the school didn't fucking pay for this.
Yeah.
It's out of that teacher's pocket.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Lindquist did, and she's the best.
We
You
had
got
Mi-
your full slices.
we had Mr. Lindquist. We had Mr. Lindquist, and he wasn't great.
You had a Mr. Lindquist?
We made a feature film when we were in high school. It was really bad, but we played at the theater. And he gave actually the best review. He was like, it made no sense and I hated it. I'm like, yeah, it didn't make sense. And I appreciate your honesty. Everyone else was like, it was great.
Did you write the script?
No, my buddy did, but I played Dick Murphy. I was the least straight cop on the force.
I can see that for you.
And the other part of the design process, once basic details are settled, make more detailed design requests, how something will be used, where it will be used, and specific purpose and representation of the game. So, for like Bloodborne, they would say beasts, outer gods, and Victorian, keywords or whatever. And then people would go from there, and then they would see the designs, and they would work it into the lore or push them into certain areas, which is cool. Demon Souls wasn't still like a major hit, but it was the cult hit in growing steam.
It got reviewed very well in Game Informer, and that actually kind of changed my mind about getting it. Because I got it like the year and a half after its release in 2009. And I was just like, well, I got to try this fucking shit out. I was bored one summer, and I'm like, just a meaty RPG. Let's just do it.
Just meaty.
Because I wanted to play Dark Souls itself, because that got like 10 out of 10s in a lot of places. But I was like, I should start from the beginning. So I did.
Yeah. Dark Souls.
Yep.
Came out 2011. He was director and producer. Bandai Namco
Same day as Skyrim.
Did it come out same day as
I
Skyrim?
believe it came out the same day as Skyrim.
That's some big dick energy right there.
That is.
Or very close. I don't quite recall.
Bandai Namco is the partner. Since they added for him, they're like, all right, we're with you. Sorry, Sony.
Yeah.
How exclusive was Dark Souls when it came out to PS3 was what it originally came out on, correct?
In PC, yeah.
Was it on Xbox?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because
Because when you port it to the West, it's got to be you need the most proliferation possible.
Yeah.
And a lot more people had 360s. So
couldn't call it Demon Souls because the IP belonged to Sony.
great.
Was tentatively okay. We'll talk about the titles that it was almost called.
I used to.
Was tentatively called Dark Race, as they were a race of cursed people known as the Dark Race. It was changed for some obvious reasons.
Yeah.
This was brought up 2 days before the Tokyo Game Show, which is why the game ended up being announced with the placeholder title of Project Dark. They then considered Dark Lord or Dark Ring. They settled on Dark Ring because they found out. They settled on not using Dark Ring because they found it as slang for anus in England.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
that sounds just like a butthole.
I call them Rusty Sheriff's badges.
So they
but-
almost called it Dark Race and Anus,
Yeah.
which actually, I'm fine with either of those titles.
Yeah. I still would have played it probably.
One thing that Miyazaki began being known for around this time was acting out performances to explain characters and enemy specific movements and things for cutscenes. He would act them out.
I like that. That's cool.
On design with maps.
You ever seen the Gaping Demon or the Gaping Dragon? I'm just picturing. Can you just look up the Gaping Dragon?
I'll look it up. Yeah, I look up Gaping Dragon.
Okay.
Put Dark Souls Gaping Dragon. I don't know what else you'll find in there.
I'm just picturing him doing the movements of the Gaping Dragon.
Yeah.
It's basically a dragon where its entire chest opens up. Yeah.
Just squatting and
And he just
He basically just pulls a
down.
Zoidberg a little bit.
Pretty much, yeah.
why not Gaping Dragon?
Yeah, that's the big boss of the sewer area.
That thing looks gross.
That thing's huge. It's
That
one of the
thing-
biggest bosses in Dark Souls. I
It
think.
looks. The photos kind of gave me a little bit of goosebumps. That thing looks real gross.
It's a difficult fight too.
So Demon Souls, the maps are largely not connected, right? Like they're kind of your...
They're almost like levels that you shoot through in one direction.
Okay.
It's not open-ended. You have a hub point, and then they shoot out in multiple directions.
Because in Dark Souls, one of the big things he was concerned with was maps. He wanted large and continuous, interconnected world through a central hub area.
It's all about verticality.
Very cool. There's so many video games you can just draw a map out for. Impossible for his games.
Nope, it's impossible. Actually, someone actually did do it, and it's like this tiered system of...
It's got to be like 3D.
It's almost like a DNA helix. It's really awesome.
It's insane. I saw somebody for the sewers under Lanedell make a 3D map of how it worked, and they actually just showed water pouring through it to describe how to you move through the map. And even then, I'm like, this is barely comprehensible.
Yep.
Bonfires was also something that he was concerned about. Another big design thing for Miyazaki is naming. He has said in interviews, "I'm kind of a naming nerd. I enjoy the whole process, things like word origins, how it sounds in expressions, regional variations, the whole thing. And less item description means less needs to be changed if something changes, and finds it more interesting and charming to have fewer words describing the world." One of the most unique things in my experience with the Souls games is just the vernacular, the vocabulary that is used, that of words that you don't hear in everyday conversation.
So, especially in like Dark Souls, you will enter a new area and it will say like the Darkwood Forest or the Darkwoods or something like that. Like it's almost its own level of foreboding. Like it'll just appear across the screen. Like, oh, you're in a new fucking area, and I guarantee you're going to be afraid. One of the things I also bring up is that ostensibly I think that Dark Souls is a survival horror game. It reads as survival horror all the way through it because it is looking around corners. It's being afraid to take a leap. It's being like your sense of fear is so like prevalent that first playthrough that you're just like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
When you turn a corner and see a basilisk, that is a fear.
Yes.
That is a real fear.
Yep. And the fact that it's so grounded and the camera is so focused on the character, your character, no matter how you buff it, it's still going to feel clunky. Mm-hmm. You're a knight. Usually you're a knight style character in this because spells aren't super great in the first Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is literally conserving stamina, knowing when to block, knowing when to dodge, making sure you don't fat roll. I've loved explaining that to people.
The fact that I played Elden Ring for a good while before you said, "Oh, you heavy roll?" I was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, then you dropped or you lighten your load. You're like, I am a leaf in the wind.
Mm-hmm. I get more iframes.
Yep, you definitely do.
I mean, and iframes is something that I don't know how popular it was back in the day. It was a concept that I found unfamiliar in most games for a long time. But now I play Shredder's Revenge Turtles. So I was playing that last night. Iframes when you dodge. Mm-hmm. If games don't have iframes when I dodge now, I find it untenable.
Yeah, if you can still get caught. See, I kind of like it because if you're rolling towards the enemy, there should be no iframes should literally be like you dodge backwards, dodge to the side.
Yeah.
But there's got to be like a full 180 where you can still get hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's a little more realistic that way, I guess.
Yeah, that just makes sense.
Because if you roll into your enemy and the enemy's swinging down a hammer, you don't get to just survive that.
No, it doesn't count because I was running towards you.
The hammer part didn't hit me. It was just the hilt.
This game's broken. I fucking hate it, dude. This game sucks. I want to play Kingdom Hearts where there's no penalty.
I was talking to someone when we were first playing the game, and they were just like, "Man, this fucking blows. I just keep dying all the time."
It took me a long time to get to the first section of Bloodborne. And once I beat the first boss, I was like, oh, I've never felt so good about myself.
I made it to the first boss of Bloodborne like 2 months ago, and then I died real quickly.
Then you just gave up?
I was waiting on another game to come out because I was like, I don't have time between Elden Ring and whatever game I was waiting on to play.
Yeah.
To start Bloodborne, but it's on my list. I have it installed on my PlayStation currently.
There's gonna be a remastered version, I gotta believe. The fact that people are, I mean, eventually, if people clamber for, an FF7 remake long enough, they just have to do it because it's printing money. And the fact that they could remaster Bloodborne and print money, I do want just a 60 frames per second HD remaster. I don't want a remake. Bloodborne's perfect the way it is. Don't re-record anything. Don't change the combat. Just make it prettier.
They should just bump up the textures a little bit.
That's all I want.
Yeah, because there were some Bloodborne. One of the things you'll probably get into when talking about these games is that there are a lot of what I would call unfinished sections, because I feel like his eyes were hungrier than his stomach could handle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are a lot of sections in these games where you just walk into it and you're just like, okay. Like very clear demarcations of like, this was so well thought out and this area is just woof. Yeah.
Outsold its predecessor in a week, Dark Souls 1.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep. Dark Souls was hyped up.
It had a following.
So Dark Souls 2 came out 2014. He was a supervisor on this game because we would find out later he was very busy on a couple other things. It was revealed and announced same day that Miyazaki would not be the director, partially due to working on Dark Souls 1 DLC and beginning work on Bloodborne. He says, I already received plenty of chances, and if somebody else in From Software could take that same chance and excel in it, the company could grow as an organization. Also, speaking as a creator, as I have shared in other interviews, I would like to see what kind of possibilities will result when the direction of Dark Souls is unshackled from myself. Come on.
This dude is just good at being a leader.
You want to know what the result of that was? Have you guys played Dark Souls 2?
No, I heard it's not as good.
Actually, it is. There's so much DNA of Bloodborne in there.
Oh, really?
That's why I took to Bloodborne very quickly. Things are a little quicker. Everything in the environment means a little bit more in Dark Souls 2. There's a lot more like navigation and almost like navigation as puzzle. Because this is a game where, much like Demon Souls, you're in one hub world and then things shoot up in different directions.
Yeah.
It's almost Metroidvania.
I've heard people just have like roller coasters with Dark Souls 2 where they're like, oh, it's not the same and it's different. And then people actually came around and it's really great and I love it.
Its PvP is still my favorite.
Yeah.
It's better than 1. I hated 1's PvP. Mostly because I got stomped because there's only so many items in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A principle that Miyazaki has claimed to have around this time was total direction or total control. Full control and direction of the game. He has final say on all text, all names, the story and the lore, background music and sound effects, cutscenes and artwork, map and level design. He says he has full accountability in all decisions, gives creative freedom to his members, but he promotes synergy at the same time. Everything must pass his approval, though, for the final product. Character design, weapon design, armor design, boss fights, and combat. He, at this time, wanted his hands, just everything to pass through him to give like final approval for everything.
That final boss in Dark Souls 2 was really disappointing.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's
How so?
she doesn't do a lot, and she's really easy to kill. It's the queen
Okay.
of this land. I don't quite remember her name, but she's got a giant scythe.
That can work, though, where the final boss is disappointing because the boss is actually not physically challenging. It's just, it's more accurate to who they might be. I don't know. I haven't played it.
There were some... Okay, so Dark Souls 2 got a lot of flack because all of the boss fights were humanoids, essentially. There weren't a lot of beasts. So after a while, you just get sick of like, okay, well, you're just a big slow guy, or you're a small quick lady or something like that. And it's just like, well, okay.
So 2014, Miyazaki is promoted to president. He was currently the director for Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Neither have been announced yet. And they're like, you want to be president? Meanwhile, he's directing 2 games. His condition was that he would still be able to remain actively involved in game development. Quotations, I am a game director serving as a company president and not the other way around. Fortunately for those around me, they understand my position on this matter. As the new president of From Software, I am planning to initiate several new projects. I can't really say exactly what they are. These could be something like sci-fi, but you would have to stay tuned for more info about this in the future.
I've heard tell stories of him trying to develop a sci-fi concept.
Sounds cool.
Apparently it just he got stuck on the idea of guns and gunplay. And these are from like insiders that I've read on like Reddit, because Reddit does what Reddit does. I wish I could find the groups of it.
Bloodborne wound up using guns, and they had to do it in a way that just like
Completely nerfed them, but
they're for parrying primarily.
yeah,
and
they're catching people off guard, really.
yeah. They had to like really lower the power. We are drinking a new drink. It's not a beer. This is called 19th Tea from Milwaukee Brewing. Ooh. It's a hard tea and lemonade, a hard Arnold Palmer. Amazingly great. It's a perfect after work drink after a long day.
Or after 18
This
holes.
is fucking good.
Eagle Park bought Milwaukee Brewing, and this is one of their new products, and I'm just a big fan.
Me too.
Miyazaki said, well, honestly, I think I'm probably neglecting a big number of my presidential duties. Or you could say that everyone around me is indulging me on that front. If we put it in percentages, I probably am about 20% doing president stuff, 80% doing game design stuff.
100% doing dope shit.
I'll tell you what, this sounds like
that.
he also sounds like a man who knows how to delegate properly, which is the most important part of any leadership position.
Yeah.
Is whether or not you're giving people too much or too little, or you're letting them kind of do what their expertise is.
Let them take over what they can take over and take it off of your plate so you can do what you need to do.
Well, and at this point, he's kind of at this point in the company, he had to have sort of become this kind of hero. Like, he saved a very small, struggling developer that made very niche games and made those niche games popular with an audience that probably wouldn't have gone in that direction if there wasn't like a proper amount of buzz. Sorry. Hiccups.
Yeah. Started assigning co-directors to projects to assign with all design aspects. Bloodborne came out in 2015.
Brad, I think I heard you like this game.
I'm a little bit into Bloodborne.
Yeah, I heard you might have played it.
I might have gotten a bunch of tattoos. August 2012, Sony.
Whole calf.
Yeah, my whole lower right pant. Sony Computer Entertainment approached From Software about cooperative development on a new title. Yo, we're really sorry. We kind of fucked up Demon Souls. Can we do anything? We'll do anything to get you back. And Miyazaki said, how about the possibility of developing a game for 8th generation consoles? And Bloodborne started there. Victorian, arcane technology, Bram Stoker-esque nightmares. Miyazaki took the team and visited Romania and the Czech Republic. He has said it carries the DNA of Demon Souls. Quotations. The game's mechanics or the gothic theme, for example, were some ideas or concepts that were always brewing for me, and among those that I always wanted to achieve in my career. So when the trigger was pulled, I knew this was it. From the start of the project, the main premise was to create a serious game for people who like games. On top of that, we have several themes throughout the various layers of the game. The three major ones are exploring the unknown, the feeling of fighting for one's life, and the new online elements. He personally laid out all the maps in Bloodborne. Story is purposely open and not explained in parts. Co-authored the narrative, and no shield to hide behind. Guns were a tough decision, he said.
Yeah. I think this put a lot of people out of their comfort zones. There aren't nearly as many weapons in this game.
Really not.
No. And I remember being disappointed by that.
The weapons are all very, though, refined and have their own strengths in different ways. It was pretty balanced.
I wish I could see the infographic from people who start out the game and what weapon they chose, because I'm going to guess the cleaver is probably the most popular.
The saw.
I chose the one that like a switchblade pops out and gets long.
Because it's on the cover art.
Well, maybe, but...
And it feels, I mean, it just looks the coolest initially as well.
I chose the whip sword.
I was told that, is it the cane or the whip sword?
cane.
The cane, that not to use
Threaded
that.
cane?
Yeah,
Threaded
I was
cane.
told not to use that.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe my buddy thought I wouldn't be good enough.
It's all about quick movements and dodging, but you can get them to bleed quicker.
And the whole concept of if you're losing health, you have a small opportunity, a window to go back in. It encourages aggressive gameplay. in a game where you don't want to put yourself in harm's way, it says, "Now get in there, motherfucker."
Well, even the fact that you can get a shield as an item,
and it makes
you can
fun of
equip it, and it doesn't do really anything for you.
This shield says this is for like a lame ass weak people from another game. It says something. It does not verbatim, but
I remember I played Bloodborne before Elden Ring for a very short period, and I tried to kill every single thing in the game that I saw. Because as somebody who had never played a From Software game, I just thought that's what you do. This game's hard, yeah, but I'm going to kill it all. And Bloodborne kicked my ass. It wasn't until I got Elden Ring and went back to Bloodborne where I was like, I can just run away.
Yeah, you don't have to fight everything.
I can be like a shadow in the night. I don't have to fight these little fuckers.
Sometimes there
Yes.
are mandatory rooms you must enter and beat this boss to go further.
Well, yeah, bosses, but like the little zombie villager guys that just moan and follow you around.
Yeah.
Although I did make the mistake once of running by them all and then getting to a point where like they could catch up to me.
Yeah.
And they did.
You were just dragging
And I
them.
was like, fuck.
Yeah, and Gascoigne, that's the true, what they call the gateway, the gatekeeper boss that most Souls games have.
He's the Margit.
He's Margit, yeah.
Yep, he is the true test of, do you understand what this game is?
Yep. And it's truly just like, all right, do you think you're good enough? Are you sure? Are you sure? Like, even in Armored Core 6, there's one boss. I actually think they nerfed it in a recent patch. So I guess I get a gold star for being able to defeat it. Baltius is the name of it. And if you watch videos of it, it's just missiles galore, man. That thing fucks you up. I'm curious to see if I go back to it, if I'm any better.
Okay.
But, there's what's the gateway in, well, the gateway in Bloodborne would be Gascoigne. Dark Souls 1, the gateway boss is probably...
Not the tutorial boss.
No, but there's kind of a gateway boss in the form of the Taurus demon.
Yes. That's as far as I got in Dark Souls 1 remastered. But
Yeah. You can cheese it off the ledge.
that's
I
what
always do it.
Yeah.
I stagger it and then I just push it.
And then there's Ornstein Smo. That's another big one.
That's like a hey, welcome to the last quarter of the game if you can beat this. It's really
Hi, welcome,
really
and
crazy.
fuck you.
Fuck you hard. I'm impressed with your brother though, beating him.
Yeah, 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Shout out to Judge Tempest. Dark Souls 3 came out in 2016. He was director of that game. Miyazaki wanted this to mark the end of the series. One of his first decisions as company president was saying their most successful franchise is done with this next game. He's like, now we're done with Dark Souls. This is the last one.
The ending of Dark Souls 3 is pretty much like, yeah, I think we have no ideas left.
Yeah, but also having a plan and just like, all right, this is what we're fucking doing. We're doing it is commendable. I like that.
If they said Mass Effect 3 is our final Mass Effect game, we're going big, and then we're doing something new, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Instead of this franchise has tits and we're going to like fucking milk that sucker.
Yeah. Till they're run ragged.
And that cow is crying and dying, and they're like, you're going to give me another cup of milk. And that's not what it's just amazing that Miyazaki, one of his first decisions was Dark Souls 3 is the last Dark Souls game.
Well, it's a common thing, not only in video games, but in television too, where people oftentimes overstay their welcome with a project. You need to go out on top. That for legacy, for quality, there is a lot of benefits. Like Breaking Bad is another perfect
if Breaking
example.
Bad was 8 seasons,
It would not be as good.
diminished.
You need to recognize when the story hits a natural end, when you have the most fever pitch for it, and then exit gracefully, because then you leave such a good taste in your fans' mouths. And
You want them wanting more.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's okay to want more when the project's gone. Just produce quality while you're there, and it will be appreciated for longer.
I think
Lost.
I think what
The show.
Oh yes, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I think what people in these positions get really afraid of is they're afraid of losing like IP style brand recognition, because you could make like this is exactly what happened with like Elden Ring. You can base Elden Ring might as well be Dark Souls 4. It just got a new name. It might as well be the same fucking thing. It plays almost exactly the same.
It's very different though too. It's a whole different approach to a lot of similar concepts.
But the style, like their Soulsborne style,
And
is
Bloodborne could have been
pretty,
called
like,
Demon Souls 2, and
could
Sekiro
have.
could have been called, what is it, Tenchu 2?
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it could have been anything, but choosing to go the opposite route and being like, well, there's nothing recognizable about the story in Dark Souls too much in Elden Ring. There's still like the fantasy tropes that you find, but after playing through all 3 of Dark Souls, you're just like, oh, okay, well, this is the world. It's closed. The loop is done. Let's get over with it.
I think it's valuable to temper expectations too, because Elden Ring is not Dark Souls.
No.
Elden Ring is
it's not.
more for the masses. It's more approachable. It's
more approachable.
much more forgiving.
It is way more forgiving.
Yep. And it's there to be challenging if you want to challenge yourself, and it's there to be a little nicer if you want help.
Yeah, and overly long. Yeah.
But Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne's limitations wanted him to return to the Dark Souls series. Level design was created to become more of another enemy the player must face.
Yeah.
Vague story. New weapon arts were inspired by Guts from Berserk
Yep.
Ayo.
when describing how greatsword combat is changing, and the speedy archery of Legolas from the Lord of the Rings films.
Archery still sucks in Dark Souls 3.
Said he was inspired by Legolas, though.
Okay, well.
I mean, when you see him do that cool move in Fellowship where he stabs the orc in the eye with the arrow, and then he pulls it out and strings the bow and shoots the one directly behind him, how can you not be inspired?
Imagine punching an arrow through someone's head, though. That's not going to work.
No.
But it does look cool.
Yeah, but
With great dexterity, Legolas
Comes
can
great
do it.
responsibility.
he made a dex saving
I
throw.
mean, I don't know if I'm like an elf who's what? He's like 100. Legolas
like
is like
1,000 or
150,
something,
right?
He's old.
Yeah, he's like
he's like
1,000.
1,000. Aragorn's like 150.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like 1,000. I imagine you can become John Wick if you really tried.
That's true. I wonder how many shields he rode downstairs before he stopped falling.
Oh, I imagine that.
If John Wick took a shield and went down the stairs on it, I would believe every second, and he would shoot 10 guys in the way down.
But John Wick wouldn't just ride it down. He'd fucking nollie flip that into a 50-50 board slide.
He'd kick flip down. Just fucking... the dumbest shit I've ever heard, and he would do it while using nunchucks.
That's funny. Have you guys seen John Wick 4?
It's the best.
Yeah.
I would say the best John Wick
Because
film.
there's a whole sequence where he's going upstairs.
Twice.
Yes.
And that's a famous staircase, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's because I'm like, he wouldn't go downstairs. That man climbs.
Yeah.
He reaches for the top.
After Dark Souls 3, Miyazaki released a game nobody talks about, nobody really knows, called Darasene. Came out in 2018. It's a VR game for PSVR.
It's a choice.
A title rife with experimentation and novel ideas. He says, I think death is a crucial element when designing games. Around them, the theme of satisfaction of overcoming overwhelming odds. Said the title was an opportunity to explore the theme of existence versus non-existence that is only possible through virtual reality. He described like that you're in VR and you see a character is looking at you, but they also are looking through you because VR is just not quite there.
I want to make a game that'll give the player existential dread.
That's most of his games pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes place in a secluded Victorian boarding school where 6 students spend their days with the school's headmaster. You play as a fairy who exists in a separate world that is frozen in time, unseen by humans. On the setting, this was the most interesting thing I found. I've been a longtime fan of Japanese girls manga from back in the days. Not just recent stuff. From way, way back, but I never got to make a game out of it. If I don't do it now, when am I going to be able to have another chance to challenge myself to bring out that secret?
He loves shoujo, huh?
Whatever that
It's
might mean,
almost
maybe.
like-
I don't
It means girls. It means girls manga, like shoujo manga. There's shonen and shoujo.
Okay.
And they're all very flowery. They usually involve some sort of either like magical paranormal conceit or it's just straight up drama.
Is Elfenlied a girl manga?
No.
Because I love me some Elfenlied.
Elfenlied is
I don't know how to pronounce the title,
it's
apparently.
fine. No, it's okay. Elfenlied is very not.
Okay.
It's what you would call seinen, which means like elder. It is ostensibly for older audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's very mature subject
It's
matter.
really scary too.
So this was his girls manga game that he kind of wanted to make. It's about fairies. It's still got some dark elements. Forgotten City. They delved too deep into the science of fairies and accidentally destroyed the city. There's a lot of like bigger concepts that he always likes to deal with, but it's based on a small story about children.
He also said he didn't know when he would be able to make this game, if ever. Did he forget he's president? But he could literally do it whenever.
But juggling it between other projects and obligations.
True. Yeah.
That's probably what he meant.
Mixed reviews, basically flopped. I've played some of it, and it did not stick with me.
No.
No.
It's fine. You know, sometimes you make that weird kind of. I think he just really wanted to fuck around with the VR engine.
Yeah, I'm sure PlayStation came and said, we're going to give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you could do a smaller team for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was obsessed with how the school was laid out, much like level design, the way you explore it. Makes sense. 2019, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. He was director. The whole plot and overall story is his, but left most of the actual writing to the staff. He relinquished a lot of narrative control.
There wasn't much of a story to be told, but
Quotations. So when you say Japanese inspired, you can typically go in one of two main directions. One's samurai and one's ninja. The reason we opted to go with ninja is that samurai is usually more grounded, more fixed. Their combat is mostly on the ground. Ninjas, at least as far as a Japanese person is concerned, can do anything and go anywhere with that design. Ninja is fantasy.
Ninja is quite fantasy. Because mostly they're spies.
Well, and then I haven't played Sekiro.
Yeah.
Grappling hook?
Grappling hook, yeah.
Is that what would you call it?
Yeah, it is a grappling hook, essentially. You have a prosthetic arm, and then it can like shoot rope, essentially.
Yeah.
I fucking love Sekiro. I fucking love it. I haven't beaten it, and it's not because I would have to dig in deep, and I have ADD, and there are a lot of the one thing that separates Sekiro from a lot of the other games is that this is so action focused. Like you can gain abilities and stuff, but there's no if you actually face a barrier you can't cross, go fuck yourself. It's essentially learn how to do it or you're done. Because your currency, much like the other games, you get souls or whatever, but you can only spend those to either get upgrades, weapons, and
Not stats.
that doesn't right, and it doesn't guarantee that it's going to help you. It might help you in a way, but it's kind of like different tools for different jobs. And there's ways to cheese bosses, but I won't get into that.
Tenchu, quotations, Tenchu was the original inspiration for this game. We originally thought of placing it under the Tenchu series when we began the project, but gave up after that pretty quickly. Tenchu has been created by a very different group of people, and we felt we wouldn't be able to create it anything but an imitation of Tenchu if we were aiming for it.
Yeah.
You rank Sekiro pretty high, don't you?
It might be my favorite.
Above Dark Souls.
Yeah. Playability wise.
Yeah.
So when I say that, I'm talking about form and function. How I kind of praise how clean a game is. Do you guys kind of know what I'm saying about that? Cleanliness in a game is kind of like if you break it down to its bare bones and core concepts. Is this game like? Does it have the same thesis statement all the way through? And Dark Souls can kind of lose the plot a little bit. It can kind of veer off. It can be different. And that's something I love about it as well. But with Sekiro, you understand what you're in for the moment you start the game. And if you don't like it, it's fine. But if you're down to clown, go for it.
I need to play Sekiro.
It's beautiful. It's honestly it's a game that you will appreciate as a Bloodborne player.
Bloodborne.
This game is mostly like parrying and deflecting and moving in for kills and getting a few swipes in before dodging and running away. It's really great.
So we're not going to jump into Elden Ring until we talk about Martin, which we might not do today. We'll figure out the timing. We don't want to miss any Packers, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Or is that okay to miss Packers?
I mean, it's okay to miss little Packers.
Okay. As president, Miyazaki says he meets other presidents and thinks they are just so weird. He uses them as enemies sometimes.
Really?
Yep.
I like that.
It's just like with their sensibilities. He's just there thinking about the Sengoku period of Japan history and how it influences his armor design. And this guy's like, the money in this, the quarter. He's like, who the fuck are you?
Man, I hate tools, dude.
In the
I hate
public,
the man.
in the
Man.
You
public,
know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Fuck the
Oh man.
Yeah, high fives all around.
hi Barbie. In the public eye, refuses to appear on film.
Yep.
Will meet fans, but he never likes to talk about his own life.
Smart.
As director, usually writes the majority of the story, dialogue, and text, having the final say. Calls himself a micromanager. We've described a lot of what his values are.
Yeah.
Personal life, he does have a daughter. And he says he doesn't want to let his family play his games because I feel like they'll see a bad part of him that's almost unsavory. I don't know. I'd feel embarrassed. So I say no Dark Souls in my house.
That kind of rules. There's nothing better than
If
an
I heard-
artist who is self-loathing.
Well, imagine if my dad listened to Hair of the Dogcast, I'd be like, oh, God.
My mom has listened. She's
My mom
like, I don't
does
understand it.
Your mom's on Patreon.
Yeah.
Games that Miyazaki has expressed liking. I just got a list here. Dragon Quest, Legend of Zelda, Kingsfield, Civilization,
Hey.
Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, Breath of the Wild,
Yep.
Skyrim, Oblivion, Hearthstone, Uncharted,
Okay.
Left 4 Dead,
Okay.
Metal Gear Solid 5, Evolve, and Magic the Gathering Online.
And Madden 2021. It's like, why is that in there?
The lore. It's the lore.
It's the lore.
Manga he likes. Berserk,
My favorite.
Saint Seiya,
Saint Seiya.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
Yeah.
Devilman,
Devilman's good.
Basilisk,
I've never read that one.
Record of Lodoss War,
The Record of Lodoss War. Yeah. Okay.
and literature he has expressed liking H.P. Lovecraft, Bram Stoker,
It's all making sense.
and George R.R. Martin.
Ooh.
Now, George R.R. Martin, we won't talk about as much.
Yeah.
The literature is a lot, but what we're going to talk about his personal life quite a bit.
That was a hell of a segue right there.
George R.R. Martin was born George Raymond Martin, September 20th, 1948. That scares the fuck out of me that's 1948.
That is 3 years after World War II.
1948. And he has to finish 2 books. I'm sorry, George. If you're listening, I fucking love you. I just really want to know what happened.
That is a long fucking time ago.
He was born in Bayonne, New Jersey, son of a longshoreman. Mother was once a part of a wealthy family that lost it all during the Great Depression. He was reminded of this every day. They were living in the projects, and he would walk by the dock that they used to own. So he has said that he felt like he was part of a bigger family that had a reason to rise again. It's the deposed, Daenerys Targaryen feeling like I'm worthy of something better than this. 2 sisters, Darlene and Janet. Family couldn't afford travel or much of anything, so he became a voracious reader. Escapism.
Yep.
I grew up in South Dakota. I understand. Martin, when he was just a kid, began writing and selling monster stories for pennies to neighborhood children.
That's dope.
That's pretty badass. How do you
Yeah.
even, I wonder how long they were.
Yeah. And if he still used the same naming conventions where you couldn't tell the fucking characters apart.
This one's named Greg, and this one's Marion, and this one's Radon. GRM. So he was selling these penny monster stories to neighborhood children. He had to stop when a mother complained about her children having nightmares about him.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Get it, George.
So he was already causing children nightmares when he was a kid. He used to have a lot of pet turtles, and he would write stories about them, their mythical kingdom. When one would die from being a turtle, he would just say that it was a big plot from the other turtles, and he would write whole stories around how they fucking Knight of Black Knives the other turtle.
That is heavy metal.
This was before the age of 13. At the age of 13, he adopted the confirmation name of Richard. That's when he became George R.R. Martin instead of just George R. Martin. I don't know if he was just a big Tolkien fan at the time. Maybe he wanted another R in his
So I
name.
can include my fucking Catholic name,
What's your Catholic name?
Thomas.
What's
So
your middle
I'm
name?
What
Dylan Patrick Thomas Hoff. Then.
What is a Catholic name?
When you're confirmed into the church,
They give you another name?
they let you choose your name.
I went with Hrothgar, the Destroyer. No, I don't know. I didn't get one,
You got confirmed into the Catholic Church,
but I didn't get another name.
Oh, mine was like German Catholic. It might be a different thing, but mine might be more Holy Roman based. You're supposed to gain, so that's how like people ascend to like the papacy and shit like that. So
No shit, I didn't know that.
yeah.
So that's when he became George R.R. Martin. He went to a heavily Catholic school. He said that he is a huge fan of comic books. He has credited Stan Lee as one of his major influences. In quotations,
He writes better though.
in quotations, maybe Stan Lee is the greatest literary influence on me, even more than Shakespeare or Tolkien. George R.R. Martin attended the first Comic-Con in New York City in 1964.
He used to write into the so like there was like the Marvel like newsletter at the end of each issue.
Yep.
And they would print shit, and he's published in like one issue of the Fantastic Four. It's really cool.
Old school. He was, yeah. He's been a writer since he was a child. It's really impressive. In 1970, he earned a BS in journalism with a minor in history from Evanston, Illinois. He objected the draft to the Vietnam War. He applied and did obtain conscientious objector status.
Hard to do.
Yeah. Early writing career. At age 21, he started selling short stories officially. We won't talk a ton about like the plots of the books or anything because that's just a lot to get into. But the first one was The Hero in February 71. A hero of a war wants to go and retire on Earth. Superior officer attempts to convince him otherwise. A fight ensues. Soldier believes he gets his freedom after killing the superior officer, but he is killed on the way out. And that's his first published short story, and it became part of what is known as the Thousand Worlds universe. Most of his science fiction stories are all in the same universe because it's fucking giant. You can just get away with it. They never have to intersect at all. It's a big galaxy.
Kind of a Discworld thing.
73, he wrote, With Morning Comes Mistfall. This short story won his first Hugo Award and Nebula Award. It's a sci-fi about a wraith world where ghostly creatures occupy a mist-covered planet, and there's one hotel there where the wraith hunters stay, and someone comes to try and prove whether or not the wraiths are real, and the hotel owner is just like, this would really hurt my business if people knew.
So they're letting them like fantasy cosplay as like ghost hunters.
It's like a big fake thing that the hotel owner is just pushing the myth so people come stay at his hotel.
It's just
That
Hotel
rules.
I
California
don't know enough
That's
about
not a
that
myth
song.
though, and that's also a metaphor about drug use.
and death.
Kinda, but death from drug use. Yeah.
Yeah, tomato, tomato.
You can check
Potato,
out any
potato.
time you like, but you can never leave.
Yeah, you never really quit smoking. You're just in between cigarettes.
That's not true. I'm not in between cigarettes.
So far.
Maybe. He worked as a tournament director because he wasn't making enough money selling his stories. So he worked as a tournament director for the Continental Chess Association and became an English and journalism teacher from 1976 to 1978. In 75, he married Gail Bernick. They had 5 cats.
Nice.
Lived in Dubuque, Iowa. Hated the winters. Credited Dubuque, Iowa with one of the inspirations for the winters in Game of Thrones. Makes sense. And he had to get a day job partially because his wife was going back to school. So he had to support. 1977, his first novel is released called Dying of the Light, sci-fi. Dirk Talarian leads a joyless and lonely life until one day his ex-girlfriend, Gwen Delvano, calls him on an expedition to the dying planet of Warlorn. Soon he becomes tangled up in Gwen's mess of a life and is persuaded to save her from the misogynist traditions of her new partner's culture. In trying to pull her from the old traditions of John Vicari's Kevlar world, Dirk finds himself facing problems that are a lot bigger than simply reconnecting with an old flame.
That sounds dumb.
It's really weird when you realize that Dirk went on to become Dirk Diggler and the sequel Boogie Nights.
Totally packing.
Yeah, that's odd. That was a weird stylistic choice they took there.
George R.R. Martin has always just unabashedly had some of the most fantasy sci-fi names in his shit, too.
Well, it's, you know what's funniest about it is that when you even talk about like Frank Herbert, who wrote like Dune, a lot of these sorry, but I think he would acknowledge himself as a dork, probably an era specific dork. they're all horny as balls. They're all so horny. And I bet there's so much sex in this book because, like, Frank Herbert, like, all he does is talk about, like, supple young breasts and shit. And it's like, they're horny as fuck. Like, I mean, I get it. It's a part of life, but it's also just like, I don't know.
I mean, if there can
It's not what I'm buying.
I think that it's healthy to have graphic depictions of sex.
Well, I mean, horn up.
Because if death is okay, if stabbing's okay, stabbing should also be okay.
I see what you did there.
I always think about that whenever, like, puritanical ideas get involved.
Yeah, and Martin just always was heavily involved in the community, always liked doing short stories with other writers or helping each other to succeed. While he was never hugely successful for most of his career, he was always writing and always helping other writers, like trying to lift each other up. He was the one who started the Losers Party for I think it was the Hugo Awards or the Nebula. His hotel room was just where all the losers could hang out after they lost, and the winner would show up and they'd make fun of him.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is great.
That's good sportsmanship, and also it kind of shows that he's a true artist at heart. It's like it's not about what you get from other people. It's about what you get from yourself. It's true.
And he has said once he started going to the sci-fi conventions or like the writing conventions, he's like, there's a lot of women that like sci-fi. Dude was thriving. He was doing well. Dying of the Light, he sold the novel for the same amount of money he would make in 3 years of teaching.
Wow.
That's a W.
That's a W.
That's a big fat dub.
In 1979, a friend passed away, and he felt like he needed to become a full-time writer. Moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, divorced with his wife, Gail. He met his longtime partner, Paris McBride, in 1981, and he finally married her in 2011. But he did live alone for 3 years in Santa Fe. He described it as one of his most tremendously productive times for writing. I mean, as an indoor person with no friends, I think you'd do pretty good.
Yeah. What else are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I played all the Dark Souls games.
1981, he wrote Windhaven with Lisa Tuttle, a former romantic partner. He has described the man she was seeing at the time as a horrible person.
Who inspired Lisa Turtle on
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell, yeah.
Yes. The turtle that he found most attractive.
Yes.
Yep.
Raphael.
Until the evil Screech showed up and tormented her.
No, he's Screech.
He's Screech.
Yeah.
Before Screech got weird and got stuck in a town in Wisconsin because he assaulted somebody.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are you talking about Chilton that way?
Chilton?
Is that where it was?
The town?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're the Wisconsin historian.
I knew people who knew Dustin Diamond.
Yeah.
And were there the day that he stabbed.
Great man.
You know.
But he wrote Windhaven with a former romantic partner. These are 3 novellas, all taking place on the fictional planet of Windhaven. Inhabitants are descendants of human space voyagers who crash landed on Windhaven centuries before the book takes place. A caste system has evolved for those that fly gliders between the pockets of civilization. The world building has consistently been one of the most interesting parts of Martin's writings. Mm-hmm. Like even the Dirk Talarian Dying of the Light. The whole concept is there is a planet that has like 13 years before it gets too close to one of its suns that it like blows up. So all these civilizations make the coolest spot that is designed to be there for 13 years as like this big like party central, like joyous. It's like the World's Fair kind of for outer space. They know it's going to end. So it's like we have this one period.
No cleanup, baby.
And
It's like a giant macabre.
It's like a cool concept.
Yeah.
And the concept of, this planet where there's these pockets of civilization that you have to use these specific gliders. And then the people that can fly them, all right, well, we are in charge now because you can't do anything without us. Mm-hmm. It's world building that it was one of Martin's strongest elements, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a interview he did where he talked about world building and how lost in the weeds you can get with it. Because you start on one tangent, like what do these people do in their daily life? And by the end of it, well, they go to church. So what's the religion? Who are the gods? And before you know it, you're talking about cosmic entities and how they've shaped the universe. And it's crazy how his mind just continuously expands upon such little ideas.
As someone who writes a lot of, I do actually write quite a bit of like sci-fi related stuff, script wise, because I keep trying to find that golden little nugget that lets me make a comic book at some point. You worried about getting too caught in things, and you worry about saying things too quickly. You got to do a slow build into all of this. That's actually one of the things I can say he does really well in Game of Thrones. Like, you kind of get the ideas like, oh, these people are in charge. These people are also in charge, and they're all going to meet up for this big thing. And
these people hate those people because of something that happened 100 years ago.
Yep.
And they briefly mention this one street, which is influenced by this one previous historic event.
And you kind of get the grasp of like, I've called it lore bukkake before, and I've stolen that from somewhere. I don't remember.
Henry
where.
Gilbert?
Henry Gilbert.
Maybe? We've talked about lore bukkake before, and you seem like you were referencing, what's the name of their podcast?
Last podcast?
No, not
Henry Gilbert?
Not Henry Zabrowski, Henry Gilbert.
Oh, no, I think I got it from even Vigigame Apocalypse.
Yeah, Henry Gilbert's on there.
No, not anymore.
No?
Not
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay. But Vigigame Apocalypse.
Chris Antista. I believe it was him
Antista,
describing getting into The Witcher 3.
And
not just really not knowing, like, it's just like, I can't learn all that. He's just like, I'm too old to learn all this shit. I can't do it anymore. Because they just spray your face with it.
Yeah, and I just took it head on, you know? You just really got to embrace it.
Hey, man, when you're depressed, you've got a lot of patience for a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not out of like sincerity. It's literally just like, this is what I deserve.
Yeah. It hurts because it's true.
Hey, man, I've been there. I still like. I was a little depressed when because I quit Starfield for like 3 days, and I'm just like, Dylan, no, you got to give it a chance. You really got to go back at it. And then I was just like, just pretend you're living in the world. Just pretend like you're just this idiot with amnesia, and then you have everyone explain shit to you. Just let it flow over you. And now I'm pretty well versed in that lore. I get it.
Hell yeah.
I get how it works. But you got to really immerse yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And immersion is important in world building.
In 1982, Miyazaki released Fever Dream, which Miyazaki has said is it's his favorite work of George R.R. Martin's. I don't know if it's my favorite. It's one of my favorites. That's the graphic novelization, which isn't as good naturally because it's missing all the words. But 19th century Mississippi river steamboat vampire novel.
Fucking sign me up. That sounds great.
It's insane, dude. It's so good. It's the most gothic thing since Bram Stoker's Dracula. And it's just the way that he describes feasts in Game of Thrones, he describes riverboats in this. Describes all of the rooms and the way that So essentially, Abner Marsh is a steamboat captain grappling with financial crisis in 1857. He's contracted by Joshua York, a rich, soft-spoken gentleman. They become unlikely business partners when Joshua promises to finance the construction of the most magnificent new riverboat, better than anyone ever made. Abner quickly discovers the guests on this boat, though, are not who they seem to be.
Bum, bum, bum.
Vampires, bloodmasters. The shit's awesome, dude. It's just so gothic, and I can see why Miyazaki read it, and he became obsessed with Martin.
It's when you got like
It's tone.
When you have a nice location that's different than your normal standard, this is where the movie takes place sort of trope, you know. A steamboat is not your go-to like location for a story, and then you add vampires to it. It's subverting expectations in a way that David Benoff and D.B. Weiss just could never do.
Just, dude, New Orleans, riverboats, and vampires.
Interesting setup, cool antagonist. Throw them together with a good writer, and you got something really eclectic.
It's very good.
I'm looking over this graphic novel right now.
Pretty horny.
It's pretty horny. I actually like. There's a part of me that's like, this would look better if they took out the color. The colorist is not very good.
Yeah, kind of garish.
It's a little garish. It would look beautiful as just black and white, but that doesn't sell. So
George R.R. Martin, after Fever Dream, thought that he had his big ticket that was going to be the novel. It's called The Armageddon Rag. Came out in 1983. That one's right there. Mm-hmm. It is my least favorite, and that's me being generous to saying I did not like that book at all.
Essentially, Armageddon Rag
essentially destroyed his career at the time. Considered moving into real estate, it went so bad.
Holy shit.
Frustrated hippie Sandy Blair becomes involved in the investigation of the brutal murder of rock promoter Jamie Lynch, whose heart was torn from his body in a cult-like ritual. Lynch had several bands, including the legendary rock group The Nazgul.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I've heard that somewhere before.
The lead singer was killed 10 years ago, and Subdued wants to bring in a new frontman who is a plant that wants to have a performance that will unleash a dark supernatural power upon the world.
This sounds cool. I mean, on the surface, but Brad's making a face.
It sounds okay. I mean, the fact that the name of the band is the Nazgul, I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's a little...
That's like kind of...
Call them the Death Cunts or something. Like,
yeah, something heavy metal.
Yeah.
The Death Cunts. I like that.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
There's it's cool. The chapters are punctuated at the beginning with lyrics from various bands of the late 60s and 70s.
When I read this, I played those songs before I read the chapter, so I listened to the song that was setting like the how the chapter would feel.
Is it a lot of Sabbath?
No, it's just a lot of like hippie.
There's Hendrix. It's the psychedelic era, so there's a lot of Beatles in here. It seems.
Yeah, I guess I missed the hippie part.
But this went horribly for Martin. 86, Tough Voyaging came out. He couldn't get a novel deal, so he did a short story collection, darkly comic meditation on environmentalism and absolute power. Wild Cards started in 1987. A Song of Ice and Fire fans hate Wild Cards.
Why?
Because George R. R. Martin does what he wants, and he publishes these Wild Cards books for other authors. It's a universe other people write in, and every time that they want updates on Winds of Winter, he's like, "Well, we got 2 new Wild Cards books, bitches." And you do you, but it's a science fiction superhero anthology series set in a shared universe, edited by George, sometimes written by him. Alternate history of the Earth after World War II, where an alien virus rewrites human DNA. X-Men.
Yeah. Well, no.
Well, no, not like it's their version of the X-Men. Everyone has their different powers.
Okay. Well, yeah.
90% of humans were killed. 9% became jokers, deformed creatures. 1% gained superpowers, the Aces, and some Aces have useless or ridiculous superpowers called Deuces.
Yeah. This is actually a fun concept to me because I actually I wrote a pitch to Marvel when I was 20 and I was really depressed about a man who crafts lead.
Oh, gee.
And that's his only power.
The porcelain destroyer.
And so he becomes a really obese guy because like the lead industry it was really bad.
So he would be a deuce in this universe.
Oh, it's real deuce. Because
dropping lead deuces.
But it's also like they would call him like the human Faraday cage. He was immune to like solar radiation.
Yeah, because he's essentially just a walking vat of lead poisoning.
But he can't get lead poisoning.
Yeah, that's wild. So he's just like
They make him like in my story. They make him like he's trying to become like an astronaut proper because he's immune to most solar radiation. It's actually a dope idea.
It sounds pretty good.
He's a lead dispenser.
He's a lead Pez dispenser, but it comes out the other end.
His superhero name is Ticonderoga.
So,
his name's P.
Hollywood comes knocking. A producer, Philip Daguerre Jr., sought out Martin to adapt Armageddon Rag. That fell through. But Daguerre became producer for the Twilight Zone revival, and Martin was offered to write some of the episodes.
This was the 90s revival?
Mid-80s.
Oh, gross.
But he found that working for TV made a lot more money, so he's like, all right, well, I'll fucking just write for TV then. I don't care. It's a couple episodes. The Last Defender of Camelot came out in 86 in April. Sir Lancelot and Merlin are immortal and living in modern times due to magic, but it's just Merlin fucking around. Double switch, it wasn't Merlin fucking around, and they are in modern times. Merlin is defeated. Kings are irrelevant. The Once and Future King, I like this story. September 86. An Elvis impersonator has his manager explain she knew the real Elvis who said he was a fake back in the day. So this guy somehow travels back in time to meet the real Elvis before the first song is recorded, and the impersonator kills Elvis and becomes the real Elvis.
This is the prequel to 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
I've never seen it. Is it about an Elvis impersonator becoming the real Elvis?
No, it's Elvis impersonators who like rob. They do a stick up. It's a revenge fucking murder fest at the end.
Well, see, I'm thinking.
I think it's got Kevin Costner.
Well, this is
in
about
it.
an impersonator becoming the real one.
I'm thinking more or less about Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep.
Have you ever seen Bubba Hotep?
No, but I hear that's what's in the case in Pulp Fiction. The Elvis costume from Bubba Hotep is one of the theories.
Really?
Yeah, it's a stupid theory, but
so Bubba Hotep is about it's Elvis. He went into hiding and he let another person take over, and it's him in a nursing home when he's much older, and he's trying to convince everyone at this nursing home that he's Elvis.
this sounds really cool.
And there's a black man there who claims he's John F. Kennedy. and
I'm in, dude. I am in.
Yeah.
and then there's this ancient mummy curse that brings
Whoa. Okay. There's also a mummy curse?
yeah, there's a mummy curse, and Bruce Campbell plays Elvis.
Okay.
Popcorn dogs.
Yep. You had me, and then you double had me at Bruce Campbell.
Well, at first I was really into it, and then you said mummy's curse, and I couldn't even
I
fathom
remember
how much.
that movie made me cry. Should not have made me cry.
You had my attention, my curiosity, and now my
And now my boner.
It's really good. And yeah, the black guy keeps claiming, this old black guy. He's like, yeah, and I'm Robert F. Kennedy, or I'm John F. Kennedy. Yeah,
I'm
it's
one
just
of
like,
them.
Oh man, and that's why no one believes him.
Max Headroom. He wrote a story for an episode, but it was deemed too disturbing and offensive. He wrote an episode for the second season called Christmas, but the show got canceled despite his episode getting into pre-production. In 1987, a feature film based on one of his novels called Night Flyers came out.
Is it any good?
I haven't seen it. It's about a mysterious alien being and a group of scientists being sent out on a space voyage. They are victimized by the ship's malevolent computer. It sounds pretty straightforward, like every other sci-fi horror. He
You said
the
1987.
Yeah. Said the film was not hugely successful, but it might have saved his career.
It's got a 4.3 on IMDb and a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Whoa.
So in 1989, Beauty and the Beast was a TV show. Mm-hmm. He was co-supervising producer. He wrote 14 of its episodes with Linda Hamilton playing Beauty and Ron Perlman playing the Beast.
We briefly talked about this recently, didn't we?
Probably, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like schlocky romance, weird fantasy modernized. It's Catherine is the Beauty. She's an assistant DA in New York City. And Ron Perlman, the Beast, becomes her guardian in modern New York City. The whole concept is baffling. Look up a picture of Ron Perlman as the Beast.
I've seen it.
There were 3 seasons. Linda Hamilton left after the second season. They brought in a new Beauty for the Beast. Just the Ron Perlman playing the Beast in 1980s.
Jesus Christ.
I know, right?
Oh my God.
And I guarantee a lot of women and men were horny as fuck for this show.
Yeah.
That is the most terrifying cat face beast motherfucker I have seen in a hot minute.
And imagine him in modern New York City, like, can I get a slice of pizza or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny about that is that I actually do believe a lot of people, who get like the intense plastic surgery, there are people who actually cite this as how they want it to look.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. That one dude who sharpened his teeth and everything.
Like the cat lady,
Yeah.
who looks scary now.
This is excellent prosthetic makeup. I'm in awe at it. This is going to give me nightmares.
Watch some of the highlights of it.
I am going to. This is terrifying.
Some gooey nightmares for Tyler Arrowhead.
In 1994, a sci-fi show called Doorways about a fugitive extraterrestrial trying to escape from interplanetary goons in the FBI came out.
Interplanetary goons.
Had to get a day job.
So Alf, what a ripoff.
Yeah. So I think they just made a pilot for the show. It didn't get picked up.
I can only imagine why.
Yeah.
Trying to ride the coattails of the X-Files, probably.
How are you going to top cat Ron Perlman?
You never will.
You can't.
George R.R. Martin, though, this is when things changed. Mm-hmm. A Song of Ice and Fire was tired of compromising his imagination for TV and film, and he wanted to write something with no boundaries that could not be filmable.
Arguably.
Epic fantasy inspired by The War of the Roses, The Accursed Kings, and Ivanhoe. Game of Thrones came out August 1996. And this will be our overarching entire Song of Ice and Fire discussion, because the other books, they came out shortly afterwards, longer afterwards, never came out. But Song of Ice and Fire started with a vivid idea of a boy seeing a man's beheading and finding dire wolves in the snow. Immediately started making maps and genealogies.
When you describe Game of Thrones as that's your pitch, right? The boy sees a man be beheaded and then finds dire wolves in the forest, whatever.
That's more or less like the tone that he was trying to set.
It's what is it? Like a vertical slice.
It's a vertical slice,
Yes.
but it's also like not accurate to what it becomes.
But I know the story, so just you describing that story that way makes me a lot more interested to read his older stuff by the way that you described it, because it sounds like garbly-gook when you hear a bunch of it in a row.
Well, have you read the books themselves?
I've read the majority of the first one.
Okay.
The books are probably my favorite piece of fiction I've ever read.
They're pretty great.
I am as obsessed with the world of Ice and Fire as I am with Bloodborne or Elden Ring. It is one of my,
Yeah.
it's the way that you feel about Berserk.
Berserk, yeah.
That's how I feel about the Song of Ice and Fire.
Or One Piece, yeah.
Yeah. Hugely into it. Wanted historical fiction, but where the readers wouldn't know the outcome. Started off by subduing magic in favor of battles and political intrigue. It's very much based on interpersonal drama and characters based on realism. The magic, though, is always on the fringes.
It's a wise choice.
Broadened the fantasy fiction genre with adult content. Hard fantasy with emotional and vulnerable characters. One of the things I think is super strong about these books is the way the chapters are broken up.
Mm-hmm. Different POVs.
They're short stories. These are like just a collection of short stories about characters in the same universe.
Which actually rules, because to even have that level of outline, to have that like intricate of how things blend together, you're still getting a chronological like forwarding of the story, but through eyes, and like there could have been other perspectives, but later on in a chapter, another character will be like, I remember when that happened and how I felt there. And it'll be like, oh yeah, I fucking remember that too, but it was Sansa.
And it's all perspective, So
Yeah.
one character sees something some way. When you're inside of Theon's head, you can kind of rationalize how they got to their decisions.
I mean, one of my favorite storytelling methods or tropes or whatever the fuck you want to call it is the biased narrator. That is my absolute favorite, because essentially it's an RPG book then at that point, where you are putting yourself into somebody else's head and you have to believe that their truths are truth and that they aren't skewed or swayed in any other way.
And you haven't gotten to the part where you start reading Cersei chapters and you're like, I am inside of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm inside of crazy.
I understand how she is thinking this bonkers shit. You're inside of the Cersei chapter is her dealing with shame. Like you read her perspective of walking through the streets.
Well, I imagine it goes like, I'm really stressed out about all this stuff. I'm going to fuck my brother about it.
It's kind of that.
I mean,
you
just summed it up, yeah.
There's a lot more going on, but the thing I admire about it is that everyone's kind of an unreliable narrator in their own heads. We all are. That's what I like about it too. Yeah. It works.
The movie The Invitation. You are in a biased narrator's point of view for the entire film.
Yeah,
and you really don't know what's true and what's not, and that makes for excellent storytelling.
It's the most sublime world building I've experienced in fiction, that from what I've read.
Sure.
Characters mention things in passing in one book, and 5 books later, that is expanded on with 2 more sentences, and you can expound a whole bunch of world about it.
Yep. Because you already know the rules, so it's like placing a puzzle piece in.
One thing that I think helps with the world of Elden Ring, the different religions, the different outer gods, the concepts are in the world of Ice and Fire too, where he takes real world religions, animism, Far Eastern concepts, and bends them, takes this, chops this part off, and it'll include something from another religion. But most of his world building is kind of rooted in, there's this country or this continent we went to. There are giant like monkey men, and there are diseases there that we can't handle. and it's kind of it's rooted in things that could have been explained or rationalized in the real world.
Yeah.
And it goes into old gods. It goes into not understanding how things work. I really like The World of Ice and Fire. This book here, which is just simply world building and talking about the continents you've never been to, are fascinating.
That part always intrigued me more than what was actually going on. I'm kind of like the person who really likes like oh fuck, there's like something weird going on in the background. That's the shit I get obsessed with.
The drunk priest who just is doing the funeral rites that he just kind of goes through and never believed in it and actually resurrects someone. He's like, I'm still just a drunk dude, but I guess I can resurrect people now.
Yeah. Are we talking about Lady Stoneheart?
Thoris of Myr.
Oh, okay.
Did you read the books?
I read them a while ago, 2011.
Yeah, Lady Stoneheart's exclusion from the show is one of the most heartbreaking elements.
It's strange. They could have really brought her back.
Strong Belwas.
Yeah.
Daenerys
I don't remember her or them.
Daenerys Targaryen had a former slave Colosseum fighter, just like this giant, big, like black dude. I think he was like.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah, okay.
And he had every time he fought somebody, let him cut his belly one time while he was fighting before he killed him. And
so he's just full of cuts.
He's just this giant fat dude that kills everybody, and he just slaps his belly all the time. Instead of Dario fighting Marines champion, it was Belwas, and instead of peeing on the guy afterwards, the guy made fun of him for not having a dick because Belwas didn't, and he took a big shit and then wiped his ass with the dude's cape. And that's just George R. R. Martin right there.
That's really funny though.
Yeah, there's a lot missing. One thing I find, it's the short storytelling is
that was from Dance of Dragons, right?
It's either, I think it was Dance with Dragons, yeah. But there's one chapter that sticks with me where Bran is in a neglected castle on the wall that they're not at anymore, the Night's Watch. And there's just this tale about a rat king who broke guest right and served someone's like child to him and was forever cursed to be a rat. And it's just this isolated short story in the middle of the big thing, a whole history of this one building, just this mini like horror tale. And it's exemplary of what I think is so strong is the short story nature of all of the chapters. Theon's stuff in A Dance with Dragons,
Wild.
when he is in Winterfell and there is a mysterious murderer killing everybody. No one knows what's going on, and it is the biggest winter outside. The show failed spectacularly in delivering what George R. R. Martin wrote.
I think they tried as hard as they could, but like the whole idea that George R. R. Martin is more concerned with what characters go through developmentally within their own lives, and the show just really needs these characters to interact because they're on the books, they got to get paid, and I can understand kinda.
It's just betraying the conceit of what the books were about.
Yeah. Well, the first season does a fabulous job of adapting.
Up through the first 3 or 4, you start seeing it go the wrong way when Rob has a romantic subplot that is not in the books.
Yeah.
Season 3.
Even 2. In the books, he has a moment of weaknesses and sex with a camp follower and marries her out of his code of honor despite having to betray Walder Frey. And it's not like this forbidden love. It's more like I have to marry her now. And honor, much like the way Ned Stark is killed for honor, Robb gets killed for honor.
Because he was the one most like his father, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The show happened. George R. R. Martin, meteoric rise. Everyone wants a piece of this fucking guy now.
Yeah.
He has since then written tons of short stories, tons of world building. Duncan Egg is great.
Yeah, it's good.
I hope they're talking about making that into an HBO show. Duncan Egg. Imagine a young Targaryen prince who just runs off and wants to be a poor person, just experience the world, and he finds this hedge knight, a very honorable big dumb dude, who's like, he'll walk in and be like, you know what, you're fucking wrong. And it's like, yo, you are just walking into a scorpion's nest and starting shit, but Dunk doesn't care, and he accidentally just saves the planet pretty much. He's really cool.
Ostensibly, they're almost like comedy pieces.
They're so good.
They're funny. They're actually legitimately funny.
Duncan Egg is great. But He's been only working essentially in the Song of Ice and Fire world for his writing since then. Personal life, supporter of the Wild Spirit Wolf Sanctuary. He bought a cinema and a coffee house, which they both had been closed in his hometown or where he's living. Completely restored it. Tons of free showings at the theater. Anything that he's worked on, he'll like have free showings and bring creators there.
He's got HBO money, man. He can do anything he fucking wants.
He bought a bookstore and named it Beastly Books after Ron Perlman.
Oh, that's so cute.
The theater was one of the only theaters that shown that North Korean film with James Franco and Seth Rogen.
The Interview?
When they were threatening to blow up the country and all theaters were pulling at cinemas, and he's like, I don't fucking care. We have free speech in this country. I'm going to play it.
Oh, damn.
So
God damn. That's a real American right there.
Hell yeah.
Conscientious objector. I'll tell you what, that's the most American fucking thing you can do.
Hell yeah, brother. Stands up for his beliefs, and I appreciate that.
You can by being quote unquote patriotic, you can become the most patriotic person in the world. That rules. I love this country sometimes.
Huge fan, huge football guy. Big fan of the New York Jets and the Giants.
I bet he's feeling really great right now.
Oh, poor guy. Well, I wanted Rodgers to do good because when the Jets or Giants do good, he says he writes better. So I have another dog in the fight. There is a giant in the Song of Ice and Fire named 1-1 based off of a Giants quarterback that was number 11.
That's awesome.
He has the Three Stooges written in his characters. He makes references to really obscure... There's Muppets. There's a whole series of Tullys that are named after Muppet characters.
God.
He fucks around with his world building, too. He called Barack Obama the most intelligent president since Jimmy Carter. Still writes on the same IBM computer running MS-DOS and WordStar 4.0.
You lose the distractions.
It's got what he needs.
There's no Internet Explorer on that.
A lot of his writing styles, notes, characters, maps, characters largely drawn from historic parallels, famous stories, Shakespeare. Despite notes and proofreading, some characters' eyes have changed color and a horse had a sex change, is the biggest one in the books. He says fan fiction, he's highly opposed to it, views it as copyright infringement and a horrible exercise for new writers when they could be writing their own new things.
I totally agree.
I 100% disagree.
Whoa.
I adamantly disagree.
I totally agree.
Some of my...
You got to create your own thing.
Yeah, well, no. When sometimes you get stuck, because I do a lot of writing on my own, and I don't really share it anywhere. It's because I never think it's good enough, but we're not going to get into that. When I hit writer's block and there is the story I'm trying to get out that I can't get out, I often jump into the world of The Walking Dead, and I will write short stories in that world or The Last of Us, and I find it to be an incredible exercise to have an already fleshed out world where you can just focus on dialogue and character arc.
I'd say as long as you're writing new characters in a built-up mythos.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And then you can just change the mythos around it.
I am of the mind that everything comes from the thing before it, and that if you chose to actually do the creative step of creating all your own shit that was maybe inspired by some of that, I think that's A-okay because everything comes from something. Like the zombie genre, that wasn't new when the fucking Walking Dead did it. So... But them creating their own world, their own rules, they didn't have to work. Like
it's essentially it's like bowling with the bumpers on.
Yeah, but also you could. Yeah, but
I would never want to bowl with the bumpers.
You could just have a zombie framework and not have to have it be in The Walking Dead.
But it's being a fan of it and almost contributing privately to it is really accomplishing. And you kind of level your characters up against the ones that already exist. So there's a bar that's been set that requires like actual. Like you need to do the story justice. It's not like you're just fucking around in a playground.
I respect that, and I actually think there is like room for that, especially when
it's more so an exercise than it is like an actual passion.
Well, imagine being a TV writer who jumps into say like Modern Family on the 5th season. You have to already know those characters.
Yeah, you got to.
When that's fine, it's fine when it's a group endeavor. But I think when you're on your own, I think that you basically have free reign of everything. All creative control is in your hands. It's much like when I draw something. I could fuck around in any way I want, and sometimes I'll draw fan art, but the issue ends up becoming like I'm not going to tell people that it's mine. Like,
oh yeah,
the issue here is I think he's very personal about the idea that it sticks to the person, it sticks to the creator, no matter what that actually is. You can make the argument that once art is out in the world, that it belongs to the world now. I don't think that's true because I've read way too much fucking Harry Potter fan fiction that made me want to blow my fucking brains out.
I know, and I have to fucking live with the fact that My Chemical Romance is the direct inspiration for 50 Shades of Grey.
Voldemort thought Aunt Petunia looked hot.
Voldemort, yeah. Voldemort said, "Come here, let me slither between your legs."
The motorcycle roared between Hagrid's legs.
His erection was larger than you thought.
He was a half giant, for reals.
Yeah.
Martin has said, I think there are two types of writers, the architects and the gardeners. The architects plan everything ahead of time, like an architect building a house. The gardeners dig a hole, drop a seed in it, and water it. As the plant comes up and they water it, they don't know how many branches it's going to have. They find out as it grows.
Yep.
That's a good analogy.
I'm much more of a gardener
in manga.
Much more of a gardener than an architect, and that's why I think Martin gets himself into trouble. Why he's been stuck with Winds of Winter.
I'm an architect.
There's way too many branches at this point, and he's called it the mayor, and he's not trying to figure out a way to get all of it to come back in.
Yeah, it's like when Batman explains time travel to the Flash in the Flash movie with spaghetti.
That worked though.
Yeah.
And as far as a new way to describe time travel, somehow Dylan loved The Flash. He texted me, he's like, this is my favorite film of the year.
I own it somehow.
The influences that Martin has cited, H.P. Lovecraft, I don't know a lot of these people, Robert Howard, Robert Heinlein, Eric Frank Russell, Heinlein, Andre Norton, Isaac Asimov, Fritz Lieber, Mervyn Peake, and Tolkien.
Heinlein is a really good sci-fi writer.
I heard that Tolkien guy's pretty solid too.
Miyazaki.
I don't know.
Miyazaki, now we're going to get to their collaboration. This will go pretty quick for the Packers, Tyler.
Oh, no worries.
Miyazaki says, I suppose the beginning of this collaboration came from the fact that I'm a huge fan of Martin's work. I love A Song of Ice and Fire as well as the Tough Voyaging series. However, my favorite is Fever Dream. He sees Fever Dream as a masterpiece among vampire fantasy. Miyazaki had From Software contact Martin, fully expecting to be turned down. It's like when I asked out Carly. Something clicked during the meeting. Collaboration began. He came to Santa Fe. The actual collaboration began with Martin ever so politely confirming the themes, ideas, video game-related aspects, and vision for the game. They had open and creative discussions discussing it. Martin used this as a base to create the overarching mythos of the game world itself, full of engaging characters and drama, plethora of mystical.
Wait, is your cat's named Mart? He's
named after George R. R. Martin, yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so dumb.
Yeah. No, you're not dumb, but no, he's named after George R. R. Martin.
Well,
yeah,
I
you
thought
are.
Martin, sometimes people just give like austere, like.
My dog's name is Frank for no fucking reason.
Martin.
Fine. My cat's name is Goblin because I said, look at that little fucking goblin.
Martin Lionel, because my mom loved Lionel Richie. Jaharis, because Jaharis was the conciliator, and Martin brought great calm and peace to my life.
Okay.
McFly, because he's McFly, he's a dum-dum. I slap my head when he does stupid things to say McFly.
Is he a big chicken?
Martin Lionel Jaharis McFly. He's not a chicken, though. He's not a coward.
No, he's violent.
And you got Pickles McNulty.
Yep, who just fucks shit up.
I'm rewatching The Wire, and I did not realize how often McNulty's like,
the
fuck did I do?
It's his catchphrase.
I know, I love it.
So, essentially, Martin's role was to create the base, all of the things that happened before the modern point of the game, all of the interrelationships for the gods.
The broth, the bouillon.
The bouillon. He created Rykard. He created Ronnie. He created Radagon is Marika. Finkel is Einhorn. He created the base for all of the mythos of the world. And then for Miyazaki, that's liberating because then you can take this starting point and then everything afterwards is for them to fuck around.
And you got the best possible guy to do it.
The best world builder.
Yeah. And I think it is because he did minor in history. Like his world building is very grounded in history. And it's prevalent throughout A Song of Ice and Fire and Elden Ring. And it makes it that much more believable because it does kind of mirror or rival our history.
As someone who's really bad with names, they could have really done a twice over on that.
I agree. I'm in that camp too.
But names are deriving from other things.
I understand, but they are all G's and R's and M's.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, if your name is Steve, I'm going to forget your name, man.
Can I get a Tommy in there or something? You know,
If
There is Amy. Millicent's sister is named Amy. So
true.
Great.
famously, Amy.
That Amy.
That ain't me.
Love her in Pitch Perfect. They call her Fat Amy.
Never seen it.
I have. I don't know why.
Is she played by Rebel Wilson?
Yeah. They just literally just walk up to her and call her Fat Amy. Yeah. It's very weird.
They can't do that anymore.
Now she's
In the words of
plus size.
Tyrion Lannister, wear it as armor, you know. You got to know who you are, and they can't hurt you with it. So when people call me like Big Dick Brad, I'm not offended.
That's why B Rabbit.
You're not offended because it's nowhere near the truth.
That's why B Rabbit was able to get on stage and diss the entire whatever the group was in 8 Mile, because he disses himself instead of dissing the other guy. See how they flipped the script there? That's subverting expectations. Something
Eminem.
DB Weiss and David Benoff couldn't do.
So Martin's role was largely just creating the mythos, the world building. The player will be able to discover and learn about Martin's mythology through exploration. We are known for allowing the player to explore the game's story and lore through fragments of environmental storytelling. This time around, Martin's story is what you'll be trying to unravel. The period the player explores is still connected to the old times. You will gradually discover why the world turned the way it is. But even Martin has said on, like, I think it was Colbert, I essentially wrote 5,000 years before the game. Everything that happened before then.
Yeah.
And then it was after the Shattering, like the events of the Shattering happened. But timeline of production, November 2016, a leaker reveals a new Soul game is being created where you ride a horse and is written by a very big name. Sometimes the game is referred to as Great Rune. In March of 2017, Martin's assistant Ty Frank said that they're working with From Software. Early 2017, development officially had begun. 2 weeks before 2019 E3, Martin wrote in his Not a Blog he was doing a collaboration with a video game company from Japan. June 9th of 2019, reveal in a trailer. May 2020, game development completed. July 2020 was when voice recording was happening. These are just what we know because I didn't say any of these things to us.
Sure.
Months leading up to release, Miyazaki leaves the office only sporadically to shower because
Crunch.
if that's his choice.
Yeah, it
He's
is.
not making other people do it. I can respect it.
No, that's fine. But his daughters are like, I don't know. I've never even played any of this shit. What's he actually doing?
What is a Dark Soul? Quotations, creating a more open game is a significant difficulty for us. If we were to include towns on top of that, it would become a bit too much. We decided to make an open world game focused on what we are best at. And describing the theme of Elden Ring in one interview is kind of the overarching idea. The theme is the will or ambition of humanity.
Sure. That's Dark Souls as well.
Yep. And the entire point of the ending of Elden Ring is choosing what you think the best path for humanity is in like an existential world where everything's fucked and gods are not helping us.
That's why I keep saying that Elden Ring is essentially a spiritual successor to Dark Souls.
You see, where Bloodborne, I became a squid baby who can go to outer space.
Yeah, I did too. I fought the thing that's living behind the moon.
It's on my leg.
It's on my leg.
It's true.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on Miyazaki or Martin from you two?
I'm excited to play the other Souls games or anything that From Software's done since delving into Elden Ring. But I think that this was a match made in heaven for backstory, history to a game, and the scope of what Elden Ring was trying to achieve. You couldn't have had a better person lay out the history to have a really good game designer build upon it. It just works really well.
I can't see where Miyazaki goes next. I believe Elden Ring 2 is a possibility, but I also am
I hope they don't.
I'm just more excited to see what Miyazaki does after this because
Yeah, I generally hope that it's not another Elden Ring.
Well, we know for sure it's the DLC.
I have a feeling the DLC is going to be massive. I have a feeling it's going to be essentially Elden Ring 2. It's going to be 30 hours of gameplay is my prediction.
Sure, yeah. That's essentially what Artorias of the Abyss was for Dark Souls.
And kind of the Hunter's Dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not the Hunter's Dream, the Nightmare. I forget what it was called. The Bloodborne DLC.
I remember. Of course.
But yeah, I love Martin and I love Miyazaki. And Elden Ring makes more sense to me knowing kind of who these guys are and why the design choices were made and how they built the world. But Hair the Dogcast and Elden Dogs exist because of people like you. So thanks for listening. If you have questions or thoughts about this episode, reach out to us. We'd love to talk with you about them. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We don't have a TikTok. It sounds exhausting.
I mean, I do, but it's so embarrassing.
If you want access to these episodes way in advance and bonus podcasts, movie and TV discussions, raw dogs, there's a lot of things on our behind the Patreon wall. Mm-hmm. We have a free trial where you can get access to most of it. Patreon.com/HairTheDogcast. Special thanks to executive producers Rykard, Chrissy Nick, Malakip the Black Blade, Blackguard Big Brian, Jordan Hoslow, Sorceress of Blood, and Festering Fingerprint Phil. We love you all.
I didn't even know my wife had the nickname. That's great.
For Elden Dogs, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I'll have to tell her about that.
Yeah. And go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Yeah. And Jets and Giants if Martin is listening.
I'll allow it until the playoffs, but I don't think the Giants are going to the playoffs anyway.
See, like, Martin wrote all of Aaron Rodgers' career before this year, and then Rodgers...
Why do you make him such a prick?
Well, I mean, no, it's... Joffrey was such a prick and one of the most interesting characters in the books.
There's a big...
Yeah, but I mean...
it's Joffrey's not a good...
if you're a 40-year-old prick, it's different than being a 15-year-old prick.
There's a big joke in a marketing campaign right now that the NFL is not scripted. Because they're like, you can't script this. So they have commercials where it's like they're doing writers' meetings and stuff.
Oh.
And with Aaron Rodgers...
It is scripted.
I mean, to a degree,
feelings.
it's kind of got to be.
Well, they like narratives for like 7 p.m. games, you know. They want the world to watch because like...
Are you kidding me? Is it really like fucking WWF?
It's not that scripted, but they definitely would prefer certain penalties to be called at certain times for certain teams to make it further.
And
100%.
If we're looking at scripted, the NBA is far more egregious with the way that it is scripted.
See, all this shit sounds such horse shit.
Look up the Lakers versus the Sacramento Kings in the early 2000s, late 90s. Is the penalties that got called on Sacramento because they wanted LA to go to the finals is insane. I mean, it's just blatant.
So why even like this?
Because football's not basketball.
It's still scripted. Ish. But Aaron Rodgers getting a fucking Achilles tendon ripped
was not on my bingo card.
No. Only on one person's bingo card, that Twitter user. We're going to go.
Okay.
We love you all.
See ya.